Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes this week. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. But this week we have a special edition of the show, looking at how the City of Thunder Bay operates. We have a feature interview with Ian Morgan. He is the Chief Chemist in Thunder Bay. It's a job that you probably didn't know even existed. We'll hear how this job keeps so many vital city services safe and operating, and that's in just a minute. You can find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/The Minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. There are many different jobs with the City of Thunder Bay, and many that you probably didn't even know exist. Sure, we often think of people who work on the front line, like those in roads or sewer and water, garbage collection, maybe counterstaff if you go to building and planning here at City Hall, or maybe even the Canada Games Complex. But my guest today, you've probably never even thought of this job. I certainly hadn't until I heard about it, the city's chief chemist. And what this person does might surprise you. Ian Morgan is the chief chemist with the city. Ian, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Glad that you can make it in today. So my first question, the obvious one, the chief chemist. Never even heard of it before. I'm not a science guy, so I don't understand much about science. In broad terms, what do you do?
Yeah, so I pretty much support the entire environment division and the city as a whole with anything with respect to science in general.
So science in general, that's a big category. Can you give me like a typical day of something that you do?
I don't really have a typical day. That's why I enjoy my job so much. So I support the water pollution control plant. I support the solid waste recycling facility, Bear Point, the water treatment plant, water collection, water distribution and wastewater collection, as well as like just environment in general. So my day varies every day.
Okay, so certainly services that people use all the time that you mentioned there. Let's dive into some specifics. Let's talk about wastewater. Maybe the not as fun side of the stuff that you touch. What do you do with wastewater?
Yeah, so we have a laboratory at the water pollution control plant, and we support the operations there to ensure that the plant is operating efficiently and effectively to meet all the regulatory requirements, set by the Ministry of Environment.
So is it kind of like water sampling?
It's wastewater sampling. So we have a variety of auto samplers that sample throughout the entire treatment process, and we analyze those every day. And all those samples get compiled, all the data gets compiled for operations to, adjust the process to ensure that the wastewater that's being deposited into the Kaministiquia River is according to ministry standards.
And I guess what kind of things do you look for?
Oh, a whole swath of parameters. I'm sure you may not know these, but for example, total suspended solids, like how much chunks are in the wastewater throughout the plant. Nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. All these need to be removed to a certain point in order to, prevent any kind of environmental degradation in the river or at Lake Superior.
And are there, I'm assuming there's obviously a set of rules and guidelines you have to follow.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have to follow a variety of different rules and regulations set forth by the Ministry of Environment, and even our analyses are set by standard methods. So we have to follow very strict protocols.
So you're the chief chemist. Is there a junior chemist or someone?
So yes, we have laboratory technicians, and they're fantastic. They work every day performing all these analyses, and they're just. They're the main workhorse when it comes to the laboratory.
And when you get these samples in, like, is this something physical that you have to do? I'm just thinking of, I'm picturing someone in a hazmat suit carrying a bucket of wastewater. Not the nicest picture in my mind.
Well, certainly, sewage, it has some hazards, but it's not where you need a hazmat suit per se. But yeah, we sample approximately 14 liters at each point throughout the plant, and we take those samples and we analyze them every day.
And done it at multiple times throughout the day? Like I'm assuming it's not just like 9 a.m. is.
No, it's at one point in the morning, but we have auto samplers that take grab samples throughout the entirety of the day. So they're called composite samplers. So they sample through a 24-hour period to get a total volume of 14 liters.
Okay, very cool. And then if there's something wrong, if there's something not working quite right, your numbers are off, what happens then?
Certainly. So if there's a parameter that is askew, we try to run a retest or a duplicate to ensure that that's correct, and then we inform operations at the water pollution control plant where they can adjust the process to remediate that issue.
Okay, so there's different things they can do to change whatever output they're getting.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, maybe we'll talk about something. Let's start with the dirty stuff first, right? That sounds more fun. At the landfill, what are you looking for there?
So at the landfill, we support, again, Ministry of Environment rules and regulations, primarily revolving around the leachate at the landfill. So essentially, once water touches garbage, by definition, it is no longer water. It is not rain. It is now leachate. So we have to ensure that the leachate that is being collected and being removed from the landfill is according to those regulations.
And how do you get leachate? Because I'm thinking of how large the landfill is. How do you kind of get that?
Well, think of it like a coffee percolator. So essentially, as water accumulates on top of the landfill, it percolates through, it sits there, it steeps, and then there are pipes that run through the landfill in which they're perforated pipes, and they collect all the leachate, and then we actually collect that into various wells in which we then pump into lagoons as holding lagoons. And then we can now, as of 2 summers ago, we have a force main that pumps it directly to the water pollution control plant. So previously we would treat the leachate in the lagoons rather, and then distribute it into the environment. But that is not a requirement anymore. We can actually pump it straight into the sanitary sewer system, and it gets treated at the water pollution control plant.
Okay, so you're not treating it at Maple Ward Road, it's being sent to town kind of thing?
So we are still treating it to ensure that it meets the sewer use bylaw and the requirements therein, because those are the rules that we have internally. But yes, we are treating it, but we can treat it faster and distribute it into the sanitary sewer system that way.
And is leachate, I guess, really different to deal with than sewage? Like, it's obviously I'm guessing it's not full of it's not full of human waste, first of all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're dealing with different chemicals, right? You're dealing with different requirements, rules and regulations to ensure that it's not, it has to be up to par in order to distribute.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It has to be a certain standard, I guess, to get into the pipe, to get to the
absolutely.
plant.
And beyond leachate, we also monitor the surface water around there, because not all the water per se will get absorbed into the pile. It will be dispersed into rivers and ditches, and so we sample all around the landfill to ensure that we're meeting all of our rules and requirements.
Oh, okay. And if you find something, because like I've been to the landfill many times over the years, when you see those streams coming out, so those are being tested as water enters those streams.
Yeah. So if you drive down, for example, Maple Ward Road, you'll see a stream that crosses the river. We're sampling that stream all day, every day, pretty much, through automated system. Oh,
very cool. Very cool. Maybe we can talk about something a little cleaner for a bit. You talked about the Bear Point plant. Obviously, a fair amount of the city's drinking water goes through there. So I guess tell me about what happens there.
Yeah. So again, I'm not at Bear Point. However, I certainly collaborate with all the operations and administration there, primarily on the corrosion control strategy, right? How are we going to ensure the water that we're consuming is safe and not damaging our infrastructure, as well as anything and everything to do with consumer concerns with the public. If they have issues with their drinking water, it goes straight to me, as well as anything to do with lead or lead removal, consumption of lead, and therefore.
So you mentioned corrosion control there. What is that?
Corrosion control is just a method to ensure that lead from distribution lines or service lines rather are at a minimum concentration.
Okay, so there's a number again that we have to follow.
There's a number set forth by both the province, the Ministry of Environment, as well as Health Canada, yes.
Okay. And when it comes to our drinking water, what sort of concerns do people have? Because, we hear about the awards that we win, how great our water is. What are some of the things that you have to deal with there?
Well, our water is fantastic. I'm not saying that just because I work for this corporation of the City of Thunder Bay. It is some of the best drinking water in Canada. But there are concerns when people may have dirty water. And dirty water comes from, the distribution system itself, because our infrastructure is quite old. So there might be some corrosion, some cast iron pipes or some concrete pipes, and there may at times be dirty water. And those consumer concerns run both to me as well as sewer and water, and they're easily remediated. You just flush the hydrant. You may see hydrants being flushed for periods of time. That means there might be some silt or some sand in the water, harmless, but aesthetically unpleasing. So by flushing, it removes all that a little bit of sediment, and then the concerns are essentially gone.
Okay. And then when water is going into the plant, I'm assuming as well, we're looking at water, I guess, every step of the way from the intake pipe to before it goes to your house. Like, how many different things can we do in the middle of it to change, to get that water to the standard that you need it to? Like, because we've got tons of filters, but are there really that many things we put in our water here?
Well, we use the ultra filtration membranes, which are fantastic, and then we just add chlorine. And chlorine is required by the Ministry of Environment, sodium hypochlorite, and it has to meet a minimum concentration to be considered, quote, disinfected, unquote. And that's all we do. That's all we do is all we do is filter and add a little bit of chlorine, and it goes on its way.
Really, that's it. And I know it makes it sound simple, right? It's just a big filter.
It's incredibly complex. Again, the engineers and the staff at Bear Point, the operational staff, they're the true workforce when it comes to treating the water, making sure it's safe for everybody in the city. But it sounds incredibly simple, and it is on paper, but in practice, it is incredibly difficult.
Now, I know that you're obviously the most familiar with our plant here because you work for Thunder Bay, but is our water system maybe simpler than others just because it doesn't sound like we add a lot to it? Like, I'm thinking of other municipalities where maybe they have to do a bit more to their water?
So complex when it comes to actually treating our water, complexity-wise, it is simple per se. However, you recall that the city of Thunder Bay was 2 different cities at one point, and we had 2 different water treatment plants at one point.
Right, yes.
So with the amalgamation of the city and with the removal of the Loch Lomond water treatment plant, it does become a little more complex because now you're distributing water from one edge of the city all the way across to the other edge of the city. So from the treatment aspect, filtering and adding chlorine, it's a little simple, with respect. Distributing is a little more complex.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I guess you have to make sure also that water is the same quality when it leaves Bear Point to when it gets to the farthest reach of the pipe.
Absolutely. You must meet a minimum concentration of chlorine throughout the entirety of the distribution system, right? So it has to maintain that level. Okay,
yeah. So from Bear Point to Mount Forest, that's a bit of a hike.
It's a bit of a hike, and different neighborhoods at different reservoirs, for example. But nonetheless, it's still quite a hike.
Okay, let's talk about things that happen, environmental spills, issues like that. How does your job respond to those kind of events?
Yeah, so we do get environmental spills quite often. For example, a transport truck may tip over or may blow a hydraulic line, or a road's snowplow might blow a hydraulic line. And typically those are relatively easy cleanups. We, again, are involved with Ministry of Environment whenever this happens. But some of them are a little more complex because, we have lots of rivers around the city of Thunder Bay. So if it's close to a river or close to a catch basin, we have to ensure that any kind of contaminant doesn't enter that water system.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you had to deal with environmental spills to that degree.
They certainly can be. Some are much more simple than others, depending on location, what was spilled, and of course, volume of the spill.
So you'd be sampling, for example, like the river. If there was a spill on a bridge, you'd be sampling the water in the river kind of thing?
We would be. Thankfully, that's never occurred.
Sorry if I'm bringing up a bad case.
No. It's just if there is a spill on a bridge and there is hydrocarbons going through the river, that's a fairly very urgent case. We've never gotten to that point.
Okay.
Thankfully.
Okay. Well, I'll let you calm down here. I won't bring out the worst case scenarios. So you respond to events like that, and then I guess you'd have people helping you contain the spill. Like that's not necessarily your job. You're sampling more than anything else.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We have one of the staff that work with me is the environmental inspector, and he or they take the lead role when it comes to those environmental concerns. Yeah.
One thing that I got in my garbage collection calendar earlier this year was a brochure about the fog monitoring program, and I'm not talking fog in the air or in the sky. Can you elaborate as to what the fog program is?
Yeah, a lot of people think about fog as moisture in the air, but
right.
Fog, when it comes to the wastewater collection system, is fats, oils, and greases. So we've had a substantial increase in fog in the wastewater collection system over the last decade or so. And we've typically taken a reactive approach. So you fix it when it happens, and then you hope it doesn't happen again. And when it keeps occurring, certainly you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So with my tenure starting 6 years ago, I decided to take a proactive approach and try to get the word out to stop fog from even entering the sanitary sewer system. So we have residential fog program where we try to educate the residents saying, hey, your bacon grease, don't just put that down the drain. Scrape it into a cup, scrape it into an old can, put it right into your garbage can. Consider it solid waste. And then we also have the fog monitoring program for large establishments, so restaurants, hotels, delis, etc. And those are the main contributors to fog in the sanitary sewer system. And 2 years ago, we started a new reporting program. We use a online cloud database called Swift Comply for all the restaurants to log in, and they can say, yes, I cleaned out my grease trap, also known as an oil and grease interceptor, at this time, at this frequency. And so it just lets us know who's doing it, when they're doing it, and if there's an issue, we can kind of, pinpoint areas of concern or companies of concern. And it just gives us more information of knowing what's going on, where it's happening, and how much we're actually removing from the collection system.
And are you able to actually pinpoint it that closely? Like, or I guess how close can you get by looking at what's in the pipes?
Well, yeah, it's more of a combination of factors. So if you include the inspections that we do now, so we never previously did inspections until a few years ago. So now we're doing random inspections of restaurants, as well as the frequency of the cleanouts. And we also, if there is a sanitary sewer issue, such as a fog clog, we typically will camera it. So there'll be CCTV camera going into the pipe, and then you can look at the laterals of the sanitary sewer system and see where the grease is. Grease sticks to pipes, and it is not a pretty sight. It's fairly ugly looking.
Interesting. And it just keeps balling up, I guess?
Yes, it keeps building and building and building, and it gets, it turns, the pipe will become narrower and narrower, and eventually there's a restriction, and now there's a clog. And it not only affects that particular business, it affects that business, all the businesses on that particular area. So it can not only lead to a backup of one restaurant, but multiple, and potentially residential homes as well.
And I guess the big one that we can think of was the Arthur Street area in the last year or so, I want to say.
Yes, there's a substantial clog on Arthur Street. That, if I recall correctly, that's a 24-inch sanitary sewer system pipe, so a fairly large collection system pipe, and it was 99% full of grease.
Wow, that's a lot of grease there.
That's a lot of French fry grease, yeah.
Okay, and it just builds up until you go and bust it out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. It sticks and it sticks and it sticks, and then eventually it just clogs. Yeah.
So, as the chief chemist, why are you interested in something like that? That sounds like something that sewer and water might be a little more interested in. Well,
the simple answer is it's part of my job guide. Is part of the sewer use bylaw. So part of my a substantial portion of my job is educating on the sewer use bylaw, and the sewer use bylaw incorporates a variety of different things, including disposal of waste, whether it's from a restaurant or a different industry, and the monitoring of that waste. So ensuring that people who are disposing things are doing it accordingly to the bylaw.
And I guess one of the things that surprised me in there now says that you're not supposed to at least install carburetors in your sinks.
Yes, that was a new addition to the 2019 bylaw. So the sewer use bylaw was updated in 2019, and carburetors are no longer permitted. And that is a very common section in bylaws throughout the municipalities of Ontario.
And what's the reason for that? I have an idea, but what's the reason?
It comes down to fog as well, right? Food getting into the sanitary sewer system. It's not good for the collection system.
Okay, so it's not meant for that.
No, the sanitary collection system is only meant for the 3 Ps.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
I want to tell you what the 3 Ps are.
Yeah, sure, please.
The 3 Ps are poop, pee, and paper.
Oh, okay. And you had a lot of fun saying that too.
I did, yeah.
All right. Your job itself. You've mentioned a whole bunch of different things that you do. What are some of the best parts of your job?
Really, it's I get to work with pretty much the entire corporation. I get to meet people from different departments, different sections, and collaboration with everybody is fantastic. And one aspect that I tell everybody all the time is that my job is different every day. And I said that at the beginning of this podcast, and I'll say it again, is that I wake up and I may have some meetings scheduled throughout the day, but I don't know what's going to happen. I may have to cancel one of those meetings because there's an environmental spill. I may have to, get called into another meeting because there's an issue with engineering or sewer and water or whatever it is. So just the ability to, switch gears on a moment's notice really keeps me on my toes and what I really enjoy. And
I'm assuming that you have a degree in chemistry based on being the senior chemist.
Yes, I do.
Did you ever think you'd be working at the city?
No, I did not. No, I left the city after doing my undergraduate in 2007. And while I came back, because all of my family and all of my wife's family are local, I never thought I would have the opportunity to come back. And when the chief chemist job posting was posted, I jumped on it immediately. And even throughout the interview process, I was, I wasn't going to get my hopes up. And then when I was finally offered a job, it was, essentially a dream come true to return home.
Right. And that was 6 years ago?
That was 6 years ago, yes.
Yeah, well, right on. Well, Ian, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And a big thanks for listening to The Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. That's thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.